No, I sort of accidentally read a article from comicbook.com that it truly grabbed my attention. It's a very short article. It's all about basically the Aztec Batman team in Comic Con sort of tease for a sequel or a prequel or a TV series ideas because it's basically Aztec. Because if you don't know, Aztecs have about 500 years of lore. On top of this, they have about 400 type of gods they can use. On top of all that, you also have lore, even the culture or myth and legends about the Aztec. They have a lot of things to work with. The only problem is, can you actually execute it? Because let's face it, one little thing could be misexplained or they didn't realize they have that option. One of the big example, Aztec Batman himself. In Aztec, they don't really have a Batman god. In fact, they brought to their next door neighbor of the Incas. They do have an Aztec god, but their basically version of it, they're basically kind of like Green Reapers waiting of the gates to let you pass. But you can overlook it because if you don't have the Batman version of it, you kind of have to borrow your next door neighbor. Even that, a lot of people criticize, well, you still have the goddess of the butterfly. She could be a perfect representation of Batman. If you don't know who is she's basically has a lot of different titles. The person who like to protect people, who give birth, who protect knowledge, who works in the night. But some of you are confused. What a bit. That's basically still a butterfly. But believe it or not, she has another title to make this more clear and connection to the butterfly goddess and Batman is the fact her children, she is the birth of flight, like owls and bats. So it makes sense. You could say the goddess of butterfly sent her children of the bat to be protected. That's where you connect to that specific Aztec goddess. Once again, that's something they probably overlook because it's complicated. Like a lot of things has a double meaning. You have to really research and understand sort of the situation of whatever storytelling you're trying to tell. In fact, let me give you a few more ideas what you can do with Aztec lore. Before I do, my name is Rachel. I like to talk about animation, not just animation, the reviews, first impressions, cartoon theories, or sometimes, if I have some spare time, cartoon breaking news. Of course, you like how it's going, like to help my channel, put a like, comment, and subscribe. That's the only thing you need to do. If not, that's fine. We do thank you because of you. I'm getting close to my main goal of 2,000 subscribers. And yes, I'm getting close every single day because of people like you. People who like, comment, and share. Thank you. Now let's get started of this sort of conversation of what kind of sequels you can make of Batman Aztec. Now let's get started. Now, I think we should start about maybe the two things that everybody knows about Aztec, at least the most basic thing about human sacrifice in the Aztec warriors. And if that's the only thing you know, believe me, you didn't understand the subject matter that you know about, because human sacrifices are not chosen. It's more like if you want to be sacrificed, you can. It's one of those things, it's just kind of complicated. The reason I'm saying this is because you watch any movie, TV series, they always make it sort of kind of horrific, like, oh, I got chosen. And the only problem is you don't get chosen. You actually asked to be sacrificed. It's something that usually people overlook because they want to be more dramatic in a TV or movie section or a book nowadays. In actuality, the people who get sacrificed is probably three type of people. People who are sick, who want sort of respect and honor, who take care of their own family. You can be allowed to be sacrificed if you want. The second one is the religious people who believe of that sort of God, who want to be sacrificed because it's a noble thing. And the third and the most confusing one is the fact people are completely useless, so you can be sacrificed. Yeah, that's the one that kind of throws you off the most, because you kind of need to understand the whole lore of Aztec, at least a good chunk of it, to really grasp what I mean. A person who could be useless, there's the one who bestly gets sacrificed. Even that, using sacrifice, you can use this in one of the DC sequels of following Catwoman. You could actually make a prequel her origins, because if you've seen the movie, she reappears there, or they see the trailer nowadays. But how can you use this sort of human sacrifice? And this is the point. Hopefully, I won't confuse you because it is sort of complicated. Let's say you take one of the famous storylines of Catwoman, is that Black Mask captured her, and her, I don't remember, was it her boyfriend or her husband, and basically tortured them. But Black Mask murked Catwoman's boyfriend and feed her skin to him, and actually attempted to murk Catwoman, and he thinks he murks her. He walks away. You're completely wrong. Catwoman is still alive. Now she wants vengeance what she did to her and her boyfriend from following Black Mask. Using that specific idea, putting it in the sequel, how you could make it work. Simple. Make Black Mask the villain, sort of a kind of Aztec warrior or a priest that he cannot be touched. So, but the only problem is nobody knows what he's actually doing forbidden things like cannibalism. It's a no-no. But because of this, Catwoman wants vengeance. How? Well, very simple. She signs to be human sacrifice. Now, the reason why people chose to be human sacrifices, besides the honor and respect, is one of the biggest benefits. Is that now the people who don't know this benefits, you have a whole entire year, you could have whatever you want with reason. In other words, if you want gold every other week, done. If you want to sleep the most beautiful women in the village, done. If you want to be, let's say, the 1%, to live like a 1% for a few months till you actually get executed, done. So you could see what I mean. The benefits is very strong. This is what I mean, how Catwoman can use that to get close to her enemy of Black Mask, understand where he is, who she had to take down to take him, and reveal he is not a good priest or a fake warrior, to basically get her honor back and have vengeance of his own boyfriend when it actually happened to her. That in itself could be an easy storyline. On top of that, you can make it more interesting. You could send sort of a warrior always following Catwoman, because they have a habit of people abusing that benefit and running away till that day is due. So you can have pressure, like you have several months her trying to get closer, but the guards keep blocking her. Her enemies getting more farther away. You could feel the pressure just even talking about it. Or you could use a different way of using that specific knowledge of a human sacrifice. Or if not, you could actually extend it even more of the warrior side of Aztec. If you don't know, Aztec warriors are not really Aztec warriors. They're better well described as sort of wrestlers with the code of a samurai, but they actually go to war. It's not actually murking someone, it's just knocking them down. More specific, like football, American football, you know you have to push someone out. If you're lucky, if you're strong enough, you push him to knock him out. Something similar to that, but instead of pushing yourself, you hit yourself with weapons that are supposed to not actually murk you, just disable you, so they could drag you to the main corner and keep you as a human sacrifice. But even that, there's still some complications, because let's face it, each person you grab, there's a point. If you are the weakest, like for example a farmer or a poor person who live in the streets, you consider 1 point. But you have someone who is basically like wearing a sort of a tiger or a panther suit, you basically earn like 10 points, just to give you a general idea. You could say basically Catwoman's boyfriend used to be this warriors, and Black Mask, who is the priest, actually force him to be attacked or poison him to fail the warrior battle. So you can't really blame the basically priest who actually basically rigged the game of his favor so he can get more stuff with a different village downwards. What's more, you could make this sort of interesting because, believe it or not, Aztec warriors, you kind of have to be one. In fact, the whole village, all the guys forced to be warriors. In other words, if you're sort of the 1% or the noble people, doesn't really exclude you. You still need to fight. That's why it's sort of interesting and kind of complicated to fully explain Aztec lore, because they have connection to so many little things. If it misexplain one or over explaining, you probably be a little confused. In fact, how many of you are confused right now? Because let's face it, I'm just very vaguely explaining some of the things. Even that, like for example, let's continue on. If you get chosen, or basically you drag yourself to be the point to be the human sacrifice, you don't need to be the sacrifice, because there's another way to be sacrificed is sort of the dome. And this dome, two people go in, one people go out. If you basically fight someone else, one of your team members, and you murk him, that consider a human sacrifice and walk away. You can use that sort of how probably Catwoman tricked Black Mask to actually fight her without any restrictions or any of his goons to take her on. That could be a very interesting way to maybe tell a story of how she can actually get vengeance. Or some of you wondering, wait a minute, there are no such thing as Aztec female warriors. They are. The only problem is they're actually a small group of ladies nowadays. Even that, if you were basically accepted as a female warrior, you have multiple titles, multiple jobs you have to basically do. For example, you could be the warrior. You could the second job you have to be a healer. The third job you actually are the spiritual leader. That's basically how complicated and how the reason why a lot of female warriors are very small, because you have a lot of things to do in other words. But other than that, that just sort of give you an idea what you can do with Catwoman. The whole thing I told you about Aztec warriors and human sacrifice, you could in between make her sort of her origin becoming Catwoman. Of course, I have to ask forgiveness because it is very complicated. You easily get confused. If not, you can have simpler stories like the memes. If you don't know what they are, they're basically kind of like vampires for outer space. They, if you see one, they actually are very violent. They're very chaotic. They do not care who you are. You'll probably be murked by them. Your whole house, your whole family be destroyed. But usually they comes of one or two or a bunch. You can use that as Asset Batman as a sequel, figuring out what are these memes and what did it mean the end of the world. You can easily figure it out, or you don't need to use a Batman himself to actually kind of use him in this world. You could use Wonder Woman. She's the one who tackled the memes to understand where they come from, the reason. In fact, you even can explain why she's there without changing anything, because she's immortal. She doesn't age. Also, she made of clay. She's very special made. So you really don't need to explain much. In fact, if you're just wondering how to put her there, you easily say, well, she's actually looking for more female warriors, because they do have female warriors. She wants to recruit them to have more warriors in her homeland, and she's trying to convince some of them to be joined with her. Once more, easy to explain, not them making so much complications. Or even that, you can have another one. It's basically, there's basically a village who is equally as big and strength as Aztec warriors. They became sort of myth over the years because nobody knows much about this sort of clan, because when the Aztec came, they bring sort of like the simple flu. They kind of got wiped because of the flu, because they don't have, basically their body could not resist the flu, in other words. But you can use this sort of storyline as sort of a Green Lantern story, but Aztec style. Because if you know anything about Green Lanterns, you could use one of the rings to resurrect all this empire, the old dead, called the Black Lantern. And they're basically a famous story of this sort of person who erect all the dead warriors and attack basically DC warriors. You could use the similar story of that, because if we do erect this clan, they hatred comes to whoever defeating them. So you could actually add layers if you choose. But even that, you don't need to use the most popular Green Lantern. If you can, there is one Latino one, but it's sort of, you don't have to. You could use the lore of the Aztecs. You could even say the god of the sun who give this power to one he believes the one is strongest. That's sort of how to explain someone who don't know what is basically a Green Lantern. You use any random dude in the Aztec Empire to be chosen to be a Green Lantern. Or even that, you could use Kilowatt, for example, to be the placement, the one who stops this sort of army of death, because you don't know what exact time period, you don't really know how old Kilowatt really is. It's one of those things you could play with. You could choose whatever version or whatever favorite lantern to make this storyline to actually work. It all depends on your imagination and what you can do it, and also how simplicity you can do it. Because let's face it, Aztec myth is just super layered. You can easily unexplained the wrong way. In fact, I'm 100% sure I skipped a lot of things because I'm not a professional, but at least I give you the idea how layered and complicated and how easy to make basically movies or sequels using DC's character as sort of like a filter. They have a lot of things to work with. It's just the question is if people like the first movie. In fact, if you know a little bit about Aztec, tell me what type of pitch you have for using a storyline or a character of DC to actually make a movie or a spin-off of it. Tell me down below, let me know. I got honestly nothing else to say, just thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and have a wonderful day. Bye.